Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
What changes when you learn from people with real experience and proven expertise? Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Tom Dickson. Tom, welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens.
Oh, geez. Thank you, Tony. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, excited to share what you're doing because I think what you're doing and the point of what you're doing is so important is about having information from people who actually really know what they're talking about. I think that's a real struggle in the personal finance world is there's lots of people talking about money and very few people actually know what they're talking about. So, this is, I think, very powerful. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and how did it lead you to create the Financial Experts Network?
Ooh. So I guess I'd start with my origin story as far as my background is I've been in the financial services industry for over 40 years, which means that, yes, I tend to be a little older, but yeah, I've had the good fortune to work in many different parts of the industry, from the mutual fund business to helping set up one of the early online brokerage firms, and again, just a wide range of uh, opportunities and just a great opportunity to learn different parts of the financial industry, including mortgage and the like. And, I'll use the mortgage part to kind of pivot. That ties into the origin story of what I'm doing today. But, at the same time, I guess I've always been interested in money, or what we know as personal finance. I've always been, kind of curious about the markets and how that all works, and from a kind of an early age. So, yeah, it's just been something that's been of interest to me for a long, long time. And, I'll go back to your comment about, there are so many folks who are supposed experts out there, and at the risk of being a bit controversial, especially for those listening on YouTube or any other channels. I think, it's really important when you are listening to someone, and you are, especially if you uh, think you want to follow their advice, you really, I think it's super important that you understand their credentials, their background in whatever area that might be, whether it's investing or student loans or college, whatever it may be. So anyway, I won't get up on my high horse too soon here yet, but that kind of ties into what we're doing today. So so thanks for that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, well, and I think you bring up a really interesting point, and it follows on what I was talking about is credentials and background and experience is, when somebody's talking about something, hopefully most of us are thinking about this. For example, when we hear medical advice on the internet, we know, okay, if this person is not a doctor, we need to be a little bit more skeptical. Now, of course, there's some people who are not, and everybody can, it's a free country, you can, or free world, you can make your own choices. However, taking into account the background that somebody has and the expertise does mean that they're qualified to give advice in a certain area. So I think that's really important. So, what did you see in the financial services industry that made you realize there needed to be a stronger focus on real expertise?
I guess a couple things come to mind. One is financial advisors, financial planners, whatever term you want to use. They have to be knowledgeable about such a wide range of issues. Whether it's again, investments, understanding which mutual funds are now ETFs to pick and choose for their clients, to investment theory, to uh, tax planning, tax issues, which has certainly become a hot area in the last few years, to estate planning, to college planning, to student loans, to buying their first house, to Medicare, to Social Security. I mean, it's just so much, right? So, so I felt like there was an opportunity to educate uh, really financial advisors, those that serve in a trusted advisor role, to help them be a better advisor for their clients. And that's really what drives us now. So, so what I set out to do in and around 2018, 2019 was to kind of reconstitute an educational platform that I had started years prior, and with a deeper, more comprehensive focus on really finding true experts to educate these financial advisors on these wide range of topics and issues. So again, it sounds trite, but this is really what we focus on, so they can better serve their clients. So, and the other part of that, just to add on, if I may, is that um, there are certainly other educational platforms out there in the financial advice industry available to financial advisors or CPAs or those that serve clients. But and while a lot of them do great work, I'm not here to disparage them by any means, but their model is they focus on having a few very smart people try to educate their listeners or their followers. And I just don't think it's possible for one or two or three people to be true experts in a very, very complicated field. And so, to give you, for instance, Tony, last year, on our platform, which is known as Financial Experts Network, we had over 100 different subject matter experts educate our listeners, and we serve thousands of financial advisors and tax professionals that actually listen into our webinars. So again, 100 different people. And so we spend a lot of time really identifying and cultivating those experts, and that's really what's different about what we do.
Yeah, well, I think that's interesting and important is because I think people look at a financial planner, for example, and as you mentioned, as financial planners have so many things. So, for example, CFPs would have 7 pillars of knowledge, insurance, estate planning. You didn't even mention insurance, and that's a huge area.
Right.
And I'm not saying that as a gotcha, but to the point of there is so much to cover in financial services that expecting one person to be able to know it all. And I think this is from a consumer standpoint, from an expert standpoint, if you are an advisor, is to know the limits. The best advisors I've ever met are the ones who know
Mm.
exactly the limits of their expertise, what they know, and when it's time to call in another expert as part of their team is a collaboration. So if you're out there and you're watching, let's say, your favorite personal finance content creator, if the experts are struggling to know all the things they need to know to be able to do their job, is it something to consider? Does this person who doesn't have any real training, are they able to talk to all of these different areas in a way that will actually be helpful for you? Do they have the background? Do they have the expertise? But even more important, do they have the opportunity and the ability to learn more about this thing? So as you mentioned, you have 100 different experts on, you know, across, I don't know how many areas you covered with 100 experts. I would imagine some of them, there's a little bit of overlap in the content. But I think it gets back to that is finding people who are qualified. So I know in my career, I was a fee-based insurance consultant, and I worked with financial planners who recognized that they needed somebody with extra expertise in life insurance. So, as part of that, do you find that when people, members of the Financial Experts Network, do you find that they're thinking, oh boy, here is an area I really didn't know much about. I thought that I knew much about. Are you getting that kind of feedback?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And let me just add on to what you said. I think it's brilliant how you put it in terms of, working with financial advisors who know their limits and what their domain of expertise or domains might be. I too would share that. I've worked with financial advisors for 25 years. Just as you made that comment, it made me realize I'm hitting my 25-year mark of working just with financial advisors nationwide. I've worked with thousands of them. I've educated with our webinars close to 100,000 financial advisors who have signed up for one of our webinars. But anyway, all to say that I have studied them over the years, much like you. And, I would always say that the most successful financial advisors that I've worked with, they will introduce their services as a team effort. They talk about their team. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have people on staff working at their company per se, but again, successful advisors that serve very wealthy households, they will say, geez, we're here to be your quarterback or whatever term of choice you want to use, right? But boy, when it comes to taxes, I use this CPA. If it comes to estate planning, I use that estate planning attorney. These are outside firms, outside people. So I couldn't agree more. I was ready when you started to say this to jump out of my chair in an excited way that it's a hallelujah. I mean, again, I just think especially if you're listening to this and you say, hey, I'm not a millionaire or whatever, but boy, I like this person or these people on YouTube. God bless you that you're trying to get that education, but just make sure you're very mindful of these people only have a limited amount of experience typically with these topics that they're trying to educate you on. So anyway, back to your question, yes, my listeners, absolutely. I have, again, thousands of financial planners that listen to our webinars on a frequent basis. And many of them will email me. We have testimonials on our website saying, geez, Tom, you helped me become, and it's humbling that they will email me privately and say, you helped me become a better advisor because I had no idea about this, or I learned about that, or, they're uh, they have high praise for our experts. Each and every session, each and every expert is rated by our listeners. On average, 87% of the listeners rate our experts and programs as excellent. That's I'm pretty happy with that. I want it to be 100%, but anyway. So, yes, most of them realize that's why they're there. That's why they come to our webinars, because they know they have to keep deepening their learning and their knowledge.
Yeah, and I want to get into something you said because I think it's really important is when we talk about wealthy people, is wealthy people are using the most popular thing for wealthy people are family offices. And family offices consist of a variety of practitioners. There's an insurance practitioner, there's the investment practitioner, there's an estate planning practitioner, there may be a philanthropic advisor as part of the team. So when you're looking at the wealthiest people, the takeaway from that is that they understand they need a team of experts, that they're not relying on just a single person. And so as a single person, you're always stronger when you're part of a team. And again, I come back to the medical world and think about when you go to see your general practitioner for your physical, is if something happens during your physical, let's say with your knee, your general practitioner is going to send you to somebody who specializes on a knee.
Yep.
And so that's sort of a way for people to think about this. If you're an expert, is knowing when it's time for you to call on another expert. I think that is a mark of somebody who is mature in their profession, is that they know they can call on another expert and they're secure in the knowledge that it's okay to call on another expert. But it's also okay if you're a personal finance coach, is to know that financial coaches are doing wonderful work. There are many amazing financial coaches on. I've had quite a few on this podcast, and they do great work. And it's to understand what the role is that everybody has. So, when you get to the expert level, is that's for when you need a specific expertise. So a financial coach or somebody who's teaching you how to reduce debt and manage your debt on YouTube, that's okay because they can teach you those basic skills. But it's just when things get a little more complex is you match that complexity with the expertise of somebody who knows about that complexity. So that's really it. You can change your oil at home, but if you have an advanced thing happen with your car, you're going to need an experienced mechanic. And so that's how to think of all this. Um, so, Tom, tell us a little bit more about what is the Financial Experts Network? And I think the thing that's probably most important too is who can attend the webinars? Is it just financial advisors? Can insurance agents join? Can financial coaches join?
Yeah, great question. Sure. Essentially our focus is uh, broadcasting live webinars that feature true subject matter experts. Again, to give you a sense of it, in 2025, we broadcast 125 live webinars. So we are typically running 2 or 3 a week. We cover a wide range of topics. I'm the editor, if you will, of the platform, and I'm constantly looking for ideas and strategies that I think would be of interest to my audience. Our audience is I would say roughly is 90% financial planners with really a focus on kind of holistic financial planners, those that are interested in every aspect of a client's life. So yes, insurance is a part of it, but guess what? It's again a wide range of topics. We do have roughly, I'm gonna call it 8% are tax professionals, so CPAs, enrolled agents. And then, we have, I'll say in the 2% bucket, we have lawyers, we have, financial coaches, like you say. We even have folks that it's interesting that have retired from the business as a financial planner or a tax pro, and they still sign up. So it is professionals only, and but yet we don't. Again, if it's a financial planner and insurance, we do have pure insurance agents as well. We have people from State Farm and other agencies that are in, but I would say our biggest segment is the financial planner, and an indicator of that is we have so anyone can sign up and should sign up and try one of our webinars for free. That's the best way to kind of see and hear what we do. So I encourage you to do that. If you have any interest, you can certainly look at our upcoming webinars on our website. I know, Tony, you're going to share that later. But if you do, of the 125, they're all available for free. If you do consider subscribing, there are benefits to that, from continuing education credits to access to all the presenter materials, replays. We do a summary now for every webinar replay, and the like. So anyway, I hope that gives your listeners a little more about us.
Fantastic. Yeah. And is there a lot of people in the audience who I know were in financial services? You'll be able to connect with the Financial Experts Network. There'll be a link and you'll be able to find out more. And for people who are not professionals, is Tom and I are trying to figure out the best way to bring some of the experts from the Financial Experts Network onto the podcast or do other collaborations with YouTube Shorts. And so people will be able to learn from those experts as well. So if you're not a professional, keep an eye out for future developments on that, because we both feel that it's so important for consumers to also have the ability to learn from true experts. So, on that note, Tom, how can people distinguish between real expertise and surface level information? When there's a lot of noise out there, how can people start to do that?
Again, if it's a consumer, I guess I'll answer this in two ways. One, again, if you're listening to folks on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, again, I think you want to dig deeper. I think you really want to understand their background. I mean, I've seen some influencers out there that talk about going from Wall Street to, to now they're helping thousands or tens of thousands of people. Not everybody that was truly on Wall Street or says they were on Wall Street was truly on Wall Street. And what does that really mean? I mean, again, I think you really want to be careful and understand, do they really have much of a background in the area that they're talking about, whether it's investing and trying to give you ideas on that, or, even things like budgeting and savings. You can't really get hurt, I guess, with some of that, but I think you really want to make sure you understand, do they have an education in this area? Did they work in this area? How many clients have they really helped with this other than having followers? So, and related to all this, especially if you're taking financial advice, if they are giving advice around specifically investments, they should be registered to do so. They have to be licensed to do so. If they are licensed and you are listening to anyone that does represent, as having, again, those kind of credentials, one thing that you can and absolutely should do especially if you're evaluating a financial advisor or any planner for that matter, um, go to the website finra.org, FINRA.org. They have a broker check function that you absolutely can and should use to check out the background of any, again, licensed financial advisor to make sure, they could have a spotless record or they may not. And again, you want to start there. It'll have all their work experience, et cetera. But if there were any kind of issues in their closet or whatever the saying is, you would find them there. And there's another site if they are registered just with the SEC that you can go to as well, and in a similar way do their background. So I just wanted to put that in there because again, if you are looking to hire a financial planner or a financial advisor, there are these websites out there that is part of your due diligence you want to investigate.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And, as a note, though, for people out there, there are some people who are not registered. They're usually sometimes CFPs. And so, that there are other ways, if they're a CFP, of course, you can check with the board, the CFP board, to see if there's a disciplinary record. And with the internet, you can pretty much ask ChatGPT, is there
Right.
tell me the good
It's
and
good.
bad about this person, and
Yep.
they'll find all this information out to you. So you don't have to go to FINRA. You can just ask ChatGPT, does this person have any complaints or anything like that?
Yeah, great point. And again, especially if they're a Fin influencer and they're on the social media, I mean, Reddit, if nothing else, is probably, gonna have feedback on them. And you definitely should take that step. Of course, there are Google reviews, and you could start in Google. You could go to GPT, Claude, what have you. But my guess is also if they have a big following, you're going to see comments in Reddit or something like that as well. So yeah, great point. But um, for the professional side of it, Tony, what I would tell you, part of the kind of the value of what we do is, I'm researching 24 by 7 the topics and the speakers that we have on our webinar series. So we are vetting them behind the scenes fairly intensely. And that's my job, if you will. I'm the one that's doing that due diligence to make sure that whoever's coming on to talk about the guide to retirement, for example, today from JP Morgan Chase, we had a webinar on, one of the top retirement research persons in the country, or, what you name the topic, Medicare, Social Security, et cetera. We're doing a lot of research to make sure that this person is really a true expert in that area. So again, that's what we're doing day in and day out for the webinars that we broadcast.
Yeah, well, that's great. And you brought something to mind when you said somebody saying they worked on Wall Street. So I think it is important because if somebody worked for, let's say, J.P. Morgan, since you just brought them up, not to pick on them at all, but if somebody worked managing, let's say, their social media feed, that's very different than somebody who
Right.
was a portfolio manager at J.P. Morgan. So that's also the thing to think about. It's not necessarily where they worked, it's what they did.
Yeah.
So that's an important consideration. So Tom, can you go a little bit more into what you are looking for when you're vetting an expert? Because I think that'd be helpful for people in thinking about like, okay, is this somebody I should be listening to or not?
I would say, Tony, that's interesting. It largely it starts with the topic or the idea or the what have you. And I read multiple publications every day. I'm constantly on the hunt for, again, ideas and stories that I think would be of interest to my listeners. And so I sort of start there. And then once I find something that kind of piques my curiosity, then I'm starting to research the expert and to see, okay, what background does he or she have in this topic? Oftentimes, it could be someone who, let me think. Tuesday, for example, of this week, we had a professor of finance from George Mason University on, Derek Horstmeyer, who does a column monthly for the Wall Street Journal. I've had Derek on several times in the past, and I just saw a column that he did, I guess last month on, gee, should young people save more in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA? Well, guess what? He has had a team of PhD students do a bunch of research on it. And I thought, oh, that would be fascinating. So that was sort of an easy one, Derek, is so I have, a decent number of academics on who are continually doing research on topics, issues that would be of interest to my audience. So that's sort of one cohort. The other can be practitioners or people that are in the business. So there are, certainly a subset of financial planners, advisors, insurance professionals who are they're interested in research. They're, kind of doing the deep thinking and a lot of times they want to share their good work. To their credit, they're very generous with sharing what their findings have been. So there it's, again, a question of just researching, okay, how much expertise and experience do they have with this? And then, there are other kind of parts of the industry where you have folks, for example, from, larger firms, they might be part of an advanced planning team, or I can have estate planning attorneys on, CPAs, sort of those professionals as well. And again, I always ask, one of the questions I will ask of any potential speaker is, okay, how much experience do you have with this topic? How many times have you done this with your client? What have you really done in this area? Because I want to make sure that we don't have someone that comes on and says, "Hey, I just came up with this idea yesterday, and let me share it with the world." That doesn't really work well for us. So anyway, it's a fairly intensive process on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah, well, but the important takeaway I think for everybody is that it's about research, and it's about matching up expertise with the topic. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. If people take away one thing from this episode is to match the expertise and the topic to the background, right? I would say to match the expertise to the topic. And that's where you really want to be paying attention. I know personally when we did our estate planning is I wanted an estate planning attorney who also had a degree in taxation.
Mm,
Because to me, I
yep.
think that's an important distinction. So for me, that was something that I was looking for. So when you're thinking about Tom, as you mentioned at the beginning of the process, if you have an area, my area, we needed our own estate planning done. So that's what I was looking for. But if I was also going to research estate planning, I would think about, well, do I want an estate planning attorney who is more familiar with family law? Do I want one who has a
Yeah.
degree in taxation? Things like that. So even when you start looking at these different experts, is it can really branch out into different areas, and that's where it makes a real difference. So if you're somebody who's 70 years old, you want an estate planning attorney who talks about issues for seniors rather than somebody who's talking about young families. That's the other thing. So when you're looking at some of these influencers and they have millions of followers, yeah, is they're the jack of all trades, but possibly master of none because they're talking to everybody. So your personal financial situation is always unique. And, for people watching and listening to the show, that I have on experts in very specific areas. And for that particular reason is so that you
Yeah.
can find out about those things. So, Tom, as we start to close out, how does Fen actually work? Can you just give us a quick overview of the benefits of Fen?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So again, anyone listening as a professional, you can and should, if you haven't already tried out one of our webinars, you should come to our website, financialexpertsnetwork.com, and look under upcoming webinars and pick and choose one or more of the webinars and try us out. And that is how we get the majority of our subscribers. So on one hand, you can listen for free. On the other hand, we have over 1,500 paying subscribers, and we have either monthly or annual plans. And as a subscriber, you get access to things such as for every webinar, we have presenter material, so slides, in other words, and all of the content that our experts produce and deliver. You get access as a subscriber to that. So that's sort of our paywall, if you will. Again, you get access to, we have over 700 webinar replays available now on our website and growing every week. You get actually a written summary. So if you miss our webinars, you can actually go to the website and download a written summary, which I think is brilliant. It's amazing. It's basically like the Cliff Notes for any of these complex topics. You get all of that as a reference guide. And then on top of that, and I always say this is sort of the last reason to sign up, is if you need continuing education credits for CFP, or you're an investment advisor rep, or American College, or CDFA, or if you're a CPA, we do CPE. If you're an enrolled agent, we do all of that as well. And again, you have to be a paying subscriber to get that. But so again, we have, and our focus is really live webinars, roughly 125 a year. We have all the replays. But in addition to that as well, I'd share a couple things quickly. We also have master classes. So I started the masterclass program in the spring of 2024, largely because while our experts do a phenomenal job of educating our listeners in roughly an hour, 60 to 90 minutes, we have a lot of Q&A. They can only do so much. So now we have 4 or 5 session programs on things like Medicare or college planning, or now we're doing one on estate planning, so that our experts can go that much deeper. So these are 9 or 10-hour programs all told that really offer that opportunity. So we started to do that again roughly 2 years ago, and I've had a lot of interest in that. And then some of the other things that we're looking at now and working with you, Tony, is the area of podcasts, again, kind of repurposing what we broadcast into a podcast so that our listeners can grab it on the go and get kind of a short version, again, a summary of some of what we do. And then last but not least, I'll say we're constantly looking to make for a better subscriber member experience. We're actually, we have a chat bot using AI where we have all this knowledge from so many experts. We're looking to make that available through a chat bot where you can come to a replay page and ask questions of the bot, and it'll come back based on what the expert has delivered in the transcript and other trusted sources, and then give you answers. So anyway, that's in a nutshell what we do.
Fantastic. Yeah. And for people watching and listening, we'll wrap up with a link to Tom's website and you'll be able to check it out. But I think the important thing for everybody, even if you're not a pro and you've listened this far, is that even pros are learning from other pros. And so that's the important takeaway here. So Tom, the last question is, what are three things people should know about the value of learning from real experts?
I think one is a lot of these topics and issues are so complex, and I think the knowledge that our experts have that they've acquired over the years and many times decades of working in a very narrow field is the value there is again, we think of this as a team, right? I mean, you're as good as the people around you. That's what, our listeners get. One of the biggest benefits is they get the knowledge in a kind of a condensed fashion from these experts, ideas, strategies that are actionable that they can take back and deliver to their clients. So I think it's just I think that's the biggest value point that we deliver is, off of every webinar. As I always say, if you can't learn something from our webinars, then we're really doing a bad job. That's my goal, is that you're going to learn something that will change how it is you advise your clients in whatever the topic area may be. So I think that's, again, it's all about education, knowledge. I say our best member is one that's dedicated to lifelong learning. If that's what you're interested in and you really want to, again, enhance your knowledge, that's a benefit. Beyond that, Tony, we aspire to build a community. Again, we have over 1,500 professionals that are subscribers today. 1,000+ CFPs. We have 700 of them are investment advisor reps. We're going to continue to grow that organically. But within that, again, one of the things I'll get requests from listeners that will say, "Hey, I need an estate planning attorney," or "I need someone, I've got a client case like this." So I think we're in the early innings of that possibility of how we can, you know, uh, empower our community to help everyone in the communities to, again, whether it's just having trusted resources. I have a lot of hope for what we're going to do with that. Yeah, so I hope that gives your listeners a sense of some of the benefits.
Yeah, so I think, the three takeaways, to sum up are really that these topics and issues are complex. And so knowing experts who've spent their whole life working on something, day trading is something that comes to mind, is how can you successfully day trade when you're pitted against a professional investor who's gone to college, they have advanced degrees in investing, they're backed up by the best software. Is it's hard to beat them. It'd be like playing, one-on-one against an NBA professional if you're just a guy who goes out and shoots baskets. And so that's kind of the thing to think about when you're talking about the experts, is maybe think of it that way, is that you're trying to play against a professional athlete. So that's a difference that an expert can bring. You mentioned dedicated to lifelong learning. The best professionals that I know in any field, inside or outside the money field, are the ones who are continuously learning, and that you want to have trusted resources, even if you are one of the experts. So that's something, is that it's that team approach that's so important. So, Tom, to close out, where can people learn more about you and where can they find the Financial Experts Network?
Yeah, so again, we have our website, financialexpertsnetwork.com, financial, EXPERTS, I'll point that out, network.com. So you can go there. Again, you can look under upcoming webinars. You can certainly, there are a few menu choices there under continuing education. If you're a CFP, you can get more information specific to that requirement. Again, if you're an investment advisor rep, in a similar way under the drop down there. And then also on LinkedIn, you're welcome to look for me. And then Financial Experts Network, if you search on that term on LinkedIn, you'll find that my profile is associated with that. So I would say, again, either direct on the website would be best. And we do have a contact us form. If you have any questions, you can certainly fill that out. We respond to those generally within 1 or 2 hours, and or again, LinkedIn as well. And if on LinkedIn, you should certainly message me or do the network connection request. I'd be happy to connect with anybody there as well.
Fantastic. Tom, thanks for coming on the show. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, you'll find links to Tom's website, to the Financial Experts Network website, and Tom's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Tom, thanks again for a great conversation.
Oh, thank you, Tony. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for tuning in. So I hope that this gave you a different perspective on learning and the value of learning from true experts. So if you learned something today, change that. And to help you grow, please be sure to share this episode with a friend and to subscribe. You can also go to my website at tonystewart.com to join the Get Ready movement to receive my newsletter and the Financial Readiness Quick Start checklist. Because when life happens, the way you think about money matters.